Hello and welcome to this very special episode of GLI Live. We are doing a series in honor of Pediatric and Rare Liver Diseases Month. You can follow this conversation on hashtag RareAware. And we are spotlighting issues of parents and pregnant people. So often, the general public, policymakers, others think that liver diseases only affect very senior individuals after years and years of damage, that it's only related to alcohol, only related to viral diseases like hepatitis. And while those things are important, um, we also want you to know that liver diseases can affect anyone with a liver, including pregnant women, infants, children, teenagers like myself with autoimmune diseases, the teenager that I was, the teenager not that I'm pretending to be today. Um, but and so to be able to spend some dedicated time over the course of today and this month, shining a spotlight on leaders like I have with me today, who include Anna Beeman, who is the president and CEO of Liver Mamas and Families, Trishawn Powell, who is the vice president of programs for the New Jersey Family Planning League, and Jody Long, who is health equity director at Healthy Birthday. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So we are becoming more and more aware of the overall inequities in pregnancy overall, and how it's not this, safe little healthy bubble that we've all have been led to believe, easy peasy. I don't know. I think only nobody who's ever been pregnant believes that. But that is for sometimes the general, picture that's presented to the public. And so people who have liver diseases, whether developed in prior to pregnancy or during pregnancy or as a result of pregnancy, and their children face even additional risks. And so I'll let you all talk about that today. Maybe Jody, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to share my story. I know personally, I gave birth to my daughter, Jaira, 6 months ago, and had a healthy pregnancy all throughout. It was at 39 weeks in a few days. I went in for my last OB appointment. It was a pretty standard checkup. They took my blood pressure and it was slightly elevated, like 140 over 90.
Mm-hmm.
And my doctor said, I think we should induce. Usually when we see high blood pressure like this, it only tends to spike and go up from here. Let's do a urine sample and see if perhaps your liver enzymes are showing up in your urine sample as maybe a sign of preeclampsia. Nothing showed up at the time. The only existing symptom that I had was high blood pressure. Fast forward to giving birth, everything was fine. 5 days after I gave birth, I went back to the doctor for a routine blood pressure checkup. And it was at that point I was diagnosed with severe postpartum preeclampsia. Thankfully, my liver enzymes never were at a rate that were concerning. Preeclampsia was presenting itself in other ways in my body. But 6 months postpartum, I'm still on a series of blood pressure medications. As a 32-year-old, I have a pill counter box and I'm taking all these medications, and I wasn't used to this. I went into the doctor feeling fine and healthy. And then next thing I know, I was fighting for my life. In essence, they told me I was nearly about to have a stroke or a seizure. My blood pressure was 198 over 100. And so it was a really scary time. And it was at that point, I, of course, was on my maternity leave. I was working as a news anchor in Des Moines, Iowa. I had been a journalist for 10 years. And I knew I was maybe reevaluating my job as a journalist with 2 young children and a husband whose job has very demanding hours. And I stumbled upon working for Healthy Birthday, which is where I work now, whose whole mission is to save babies from preventable stillbirth. And my role as health equity director is to address and tackle the racial disparities that exist within birth outcomes for women of color. And so having a lived experience that I never found myself experiencing, no one ever thinks of things happening to them, but it was an amazing segue into a career that is helping mothers and expectant parents, not only for themselves, but also to bring their babies here safely too.
Oh, that is so exciting. And I know how powerful it is to live your purpose. And so thank you for, turning that experience into something to benefit others. Trishawn, tell us about yourself and your experience.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Trayshawn Powell, and what brought me to this experience is that, same with Jody, at 23 weeks, I was diagnosed with HELLP syndrome, and that is hemolysis elevated liver platelets. And so at 23 weeks, HELLP syndrome, which is a severe form of preeclampsia. So you have preeclampsia, you have HELLP syndrome, and then you have eclampsia. And so at 23 weeks pregnant with my first child, I was diagnosed with HELLP syndrome. Unfortunately, there is no cure for preeclampsia and or HELLP syndrome. So when you're diagnosed with HELLP syndrome and or preeclampsia, the fastest way is to deliver the baby. And that may be at any rate of gestational age. And so my daughter, Mia Jane, unfortunately was delivered via C-section, emergency C-section at 23 weeks. She survived for 2 days. And then unfortunately, due to severe prematurity, she passed 2 days later. And so I was in the hospital with multiple surgeries, fighting for my life, having to repair my liver as well. Jody, I was in excellent care. I prepared my body for pregnancy and never thought that this would happen at that late stage. And so again, I was after pregnancy and after post-discharge, I had to be followed up with liver specialists, followed up with taking blood pressure medicine as well. And 15 months later, we welcomed a second child. She was born safely, and I did not have preeclampsia as well. And then 4 years later, we welcomed another child, a son, and no preeclampsia as well. So that is what brought me to this experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anna, you are a fellow lawyer, legal advocate. How have you brought your full self to this experience?
Well, much like the ladies that came before me and you, this isn't exactly where I saw my life heading. I didn't know I would be this obsessed with the liver world. But when you have children, as you guys all know, they kind of direct your focus. My son, Will, was born November 22nd of 2017. Full term, absolutely normal pregnancy, as they say. Although he was born with bilateral clubfoot, which hindsight I thought was going to be such a big thing for me. And I didn't know how it was going to affect our family. About 2 months into his clubfoot treatment at the hospital, I asked our orthopedist, I said, his eyes are still kind of yellow. Going to that jaundice thing that I'm going to talk about later. Is there something that we should, well, the next time you go to your pediatrician, maybe get them to run a few blood tests. So we went to our pediatrician for our 2-month wellness checkup, and they sent us to our local children's hospital because newborns are very small, hard to draw blood. They drew some blood. My husband and I loaded up our little one, and we thought we were heading home. We didn't even make it out of the parking garage, and they called us and said, we're going to do a direct admit. And I had no idea what direct admit was. I didn't know any of these things. And a battery of tests started happening on my 2-month-old, and it was determined that he was born with biliary atresia, which means that the bile ducts weren't formed correctly. So the bile was backing up into his liver as opposed to being processed out of his body in a normal way. So he had what was called a Kasai procedure in February, which was medically a success because the bile was able to flow, but the liver was too cirrhotic at that point, even only after 2 months of life. So he was listed for transplant at the beginning of May of 2018, and he was transplanted on May 25th of 2018. So he received a deceased donor liver, and he's 5 years old now, and he is rocking. And transplant comes with a lot of challenges. They told us a long time ago that we were trading a biliary atresia diagnosis for a post-transplant diagnosis. With that comes lots of routine testing, a lot of PTSD that comes with being medically traumatized often as a young child. Also for me as the primary caregiver, even a little bit for our older daughter, it's just a lot. It impacts every element of your life. So, but like I said, he's doing great. He's at preschool right now, which is excellent. This is our first year, and to actually be able to send him, thanks to a pandemic and immune suppressed kiddo, he's doing well. And my husband and I both have a very long career of being engaged in nonprofits. And when we found out this was going to be our journey, we knew we wanted to get involved and try and help people who were going through the pediatric liver disease diagnosis. And we found Liver Mamas and Families, run by a dear friend of mine. And she had already done such a great job, and it has such a strong reputation within the pediatric liver community. So I joined the board back in 2020, and Jasmine, our founder, wanted to kind of take a step back. Her children are getting older. She wanted to focus on some other things. So I transitioned into CEO last summer, I guess. And it's been a great opportunity for me to kind of take the ideas that my husband and I had and put them to work in an organization that's already been well established and has a great reputation. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
I'm very excited to have, grown GLI to the point where we have an opportunity to intersect with Liver Mamas, because yes, you're right. You're very well regarded. And I'm looking for opportunities to work with you for years. So when we launched our Pediatric and Rare Liver Diseases Council, I've been waiting for this moment. And I'll just say 28 years post-transplant, I definitely would trade transplant for having active liver disease any day and twice on Sunday. And yes, my pill boxes, Jody, are very big and ridiculous for for someone, when I was in high school in my 20s and things. It was very hard for me to think I had these. I'm like, no, I need a bigger. I need like the grandma size. I'm like, no, not the Monday. Like, I need more. And it's an important part of my Sunday routine to fill up all the pill boxes and things. So, what I wanted to say is that, or ask rather, so there are problems often with women being taken seriously by their doctor in terms of pain or unusual symptoms. There are problems with women of color being taken seriously when trying to report symptoms of pain or unusual symptoms. How do we help inform both the families and the practitioners so that we have higher quality conversations and interactions where people are believed and actions are taken proactively, and there isn't the as much of the trauma, Anna, that you referred to that happens. Maybe Jody, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to speak on that. Yeah, it's of course, with Count the Kicks, it's the evidence-based liver prevention program that Healthy Birthday launched back in 2008. And what that is a tool. It's an app for expectant parents to download on their phones to keep track of their baby's movements every day in the third trimester. Now, for those who may have liver issues and are determined high risk by their doctors, they can begin counting their baby's movements, jabs, rolls at 26 weeks. But the importance of this is to empower the expectant parent, right? So when they are keeping track of their baby's movements every day, and they realize how long it's taking their baby to get to 10 kicks. For my son, it was 5 minutes. And so with having that baseline knowledge, it takes the guesswork out of realizing my active baby isn't moving as much anymore. And a baby's movements is often the only warning sign that your baby might be in distress. And so it's important for expectant parents to know that information, but it's also equally, or maybe arguably more important for the provider to be able to take that information and do something with it. If a parent is coming to the doctor's office saying, my baby isn't moving as much, I'm tracking it, it seems different, it's taking my child longer to reach their movements, or their movements are different, not as fierce, but fluttery. The doctor needs to say, okay, I'm not going to send you home. This warrants me to do some more evaluating and to believe that person, and to be educated on perhaps how to have a conversation with someone who doesn't look like them, and why they might be dismissed, or why they might not be believed. You know, we've often heard times from expectant parents who say, my doctor never told me about this. And when I said something, they sent me home or told me to lay on my side and drink something sugary. And we have found through research that won't help a baby who's not feeling well. If I'm not feeling well and you tell me, oh, we'll just go run upstairs real quick and go grab some orange juice so you feel better, I don't feel like running. I might not even get off the couch to go upstairs. And so it's that same type of feeling. And so we not only want to empower the expectant parents, but to also put the pressure on the back of some providers who may not be asking the right questions or having that listening ear.
Absolutely. I have found that presenting them with things a little bit more in their own language, just as you did, that, you know, we have tracked it. It is with this frequency. It is with this, you know, intensity. They're a little better able to, you know, absorb it and sort of put it into their, you know, thinking maps and algorithms than if you just say, you know, there seems like there's something wrong. I think that that's a really excellent way to sort of help them you know, get over their sort of heuristic hurdles, if you will, to take it seriously. Trishawn, how would you, you know, what would you say to help empower women to be heard?
And so it's personal for me because I wasn't heard. And so at 20 weeks, I went to my doctor and said, you know, something doesn't feel right. And my doctor said to me, oh, well, you were rushing to this appointment. So that's why your blood pressure is a little higher, because probably you were rushing. You were a little late to the appointment. Everything will be well. Go home and rest. Everything looks well. That was at 20 weeks. Who knew 3 weeks later I would be in ICU with HELLP syndrome? And so I bring my lived experience to the table all the time. I partnered with the Preeclampsia Foundation. I've also partnered with Mama's Voices, and Mama's Voices is an organization full of advocates. And so Mama's Voices is MOMMA, and the MMA is capitalized for maternal mortality and morbidity advocates. And so those advocates are advocates with lived experiences that help train hospitals, help stand with patients, other patients that have lived experiences, to be able to share their story, to be able to partner with hospitals, to be able to partner with community-based organizations to help other moms to learn how to either share their story or to provide them with a voice and a platform to be able to share that and understand what happened to them. Because sometimes it might not be the patient. It may be their community. It may be their trusted friend. It may be their support team that is really looking to support that patient and that mama with some type of information to be able to realize and recognize what just happened and how we can impact that, and how we can, I'm sorry, not impact, but how we can equip our communities, especially those who are historically marginalized, with information and resources and tools.
I think that I think that is so important. We know when you said MMA, I was like, somebody's gonna fight somebody, and they're trained to do it. But it does mean it in that way as well. You know, I worked on a maternal fetal preterm birth risk reduction program years ago to keep babies out of the NICU and to also enhance breastfeeding here in Washington, D.C., and particularly in wards 7 and 8. And when I convened the large, meeting of muckety mucks and whoosity whoos, I made them come to the birthing center in a community part of DC that their Escalades don't normally pull up in front of, where there were women, feeding babies, breastfeeding babies in the back of the room, and seeing these presentations. And I think that's so important that they are anchored in the community, anchored in the reality, directly speaking to women about what they want. It was the only midwife driven program in the city, but it had the best rates. And so they taught the executives about having centering pregnancies and having women sharing throughout their pregnancies and supporting each other through that. Really changed how they did that work, and happy to say that some of that still persists. But I think anchoring that in the experiences of the community and of women is really important to getting this right. Anna, with your extensive experience, not only with your personal experience, but with your nonprofit experience, help me and the Global Liver Institute and the entire Pediatric and Rare Liver Diseases Council understand how we can be more effective, how we can add to these voices, and to make sure that these issues of liver disease and pregnancy, which seem so rare, so small, so marginalized, so over here, can really be brought into just what is standard of care for everyone. So you don't have to be a sort of a superhero to bring this forward. You don't have to be so strong to have this voice, that your OBGYN, that your pediatrician is ready for it, is bringing those conversations forward. What can we do as an organization and a collection of organizations do to really put that on the map?
That is a much bigger question.
I'm sorry, because I'm almost like, I'm convinced and convicted now. I'm just like, let's create some change.
Right. I think it's so physicians are a gift, and I'm thankful for them every day. But I think sometimes they get so used to I had one physician call it NBS, normal baby stuff, normal pregnant mother stuff, that it's usually not a zebra. We know that expression now. We know it's usually not a zebra. The odds are pretty good it's not. But when it is a zebra, there are so many tests and so much more technology and testing and things available to us, that if we just explored a little bit, took a few things to heart, paid attention to those mothers, whether they are currently pregnant or mothering a newborn, listen to the instincts of those that are sitting in front of you, forget all the other things, like we all have to do. Forget about all the other things that are waiting for you outside of that room, and spend those moments and really listen to what's going on, and pay attention. And as a parent, you were asking, so I hope it's okay that I throw this in. What can we do as a parent? What can I encourage parents to do from that caregiver perspective when they're going into an office with concerns? And like you guys said, the more you document, the better. From our perspective as parents, if you have a dirty diaper, take that with you. When you're talking about the color of stool, very early on, that is a very, that's a spectrum, sisters. And I am just like, the color yellow is very different to every single person in this world. So hindsight being what it was, I should have just taken a dirty diaper with me, because my definition of yellow is wildly different. So from the provider's perspective, I think in my dream world, Donna, hard with colors of poop will go every box of newborn diapers, regardless of
Right.
brand. Because
Can I
Yeah.
make your dreams come true?
Yeah.
Like right now, I feel like I have an Oprah moment coming on. So that is standard in Taiwan to have a stool card with with the colors to give into every parent as sort of a part of public newborn health, and for viewers, like, why would you do that? Because a chalky stool, sort of a white chalky stool, is indicative of a liver disease like biliary atresia, and in Taiwan they are often caught earlier, before those first pediatric visits, and it makes the child more likely to be able to have non-invasive procedures or a Kasai procedure, and avoid transplant or delay it. And so it is evidence-based, tested in other countries. Johns Hopkins has done a pilot of it. When I was talking to Kathy Schwartz, who had been head of the children's liver disease at Hopkins, that was actually our very first conversation. And Doug Mogul did reach out to Procter & Gamble because I said, well, you should talk to P&G. They're like, why? I'm like, they make diapers. They're already in your in your hospital passing things out. And so they did get a small grant, and they did do an app called Poop MD. I did not name it. That would not have been my marketing advice, but we can maybe help them with that. But I think the example is there for this partnership. I think we should go back as us, the patient community, about the need for this. GLI wasn't even yet, I was still writing the 501c3s. I just sort of had these ideas and observations about global examples of things that had used. But that's exactly what I said, and they did have some success with that. So let's take that up again, because I think that is a very reasonable. We've proven it's a doable thing to have, and would be a great show of public goodwill towards pediatric liver health. So Procter & Gamble, if you're listening, and if not, I'll send it to you, and all your competitors if you say no. This is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. So I agree.
And along that vein, just another visual that I think is so helpful, and social media is great. It gives us put this visual out there, is recognizing jaundice in different ethnic backgrounds is extremely hard. And you'll find most pediatricians just aren't equipped to that. And I've seen so wonderful illustrations that help you identify jaundice, depending on the skin pigmentation. And I think that just, maybe they learned it a long time ago, and maybe they need a refresher every now and again, or even, a laminated illustration. They hang all these other things in every doctor's office. Let's go ahead and put one more up there so that we can identify not only stool colors, because it can point to a lot of different problems, not just liver issues, but a whole host of problems that face newborns, that if we catch them earlier, we can prevent a lot of those domino effects and those issues that come up. So those two things are just, from the physician side of things, just maybe refreshers on those issues. And then also disseminating that information to new parents and old parents. No matter which kid it is, you're still learning things with each child. So, and what we do with Liver Mamas and Families is our forum. We try to provide that sounding board for the parents to give them an opportunity to come in and say, these things are happening, X, Y, and Z. And we give medical advice, but what we do is give them the courage and the maybe a little bit more of the feeling of a right to ask questions and a right to these things to their physician, by saying, I know that these things are, and I still go in and say, I promise you, I didn't look this up on a scary mommy blog. I looked this up on a reputable source. That's all but these are the symptoms he's presenting with, and this is the direction that I think we're headed. Right. Now our caregivers, our providers know me, and they understand that I'm not one to just jump the gun, but just going in with some kind of like documented support of what you're looking at and what you're thinking it might be is always helpful, so that maybe they will say, okay, let me stop thinking about the next room and let me pay attention to this person sitting in the room right now and what they're presenting to me. So
yeah, that's similar into like how our app tracks things. So you can print off your data chart, you know, from your kid counting history for the last week or however long, and email that to a friend or print it off and give it to your doctor, or just show your doctor, because yes, it kind of helps build your case, if you will. Like, hey, I've been noticing this, and this is why I think you should spend extra time with me to look at my concerns. So totally echoing what you had to say, Anna.
Excellent. And Trishawn, I'll give you the last word before we leave. What would you want people most to know or do once they listen to this episode?
What I would like people to know and do once they listen to this episode is be informed. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, social media, at Mama's Voices, at Preeclampsia Foundation. I think it's very important for patients like me and other patients with lived experiences to be able to share your story, to be able to recognize that your story and your lived experiences has value. I think I'm echoing what Anna and also Jody said for our providers. Get to know your patients and less on the chart. I think for providers, we walk in with the chart and we automatically know the patient. And I think for successful care, for respectful care, for patient-centered care, it's best for you to really know your patient.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. Join us weekly on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Time for more episodes of GLI Live. Check out our website, globalliver.org, and follow us on social media to learn more about the Global Liver Institute and stay up to date with the latest in liver health. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay connected.